Brown. I am the director. Normally we can get our tech to work, but evidently today was not our day. So we are going to go ahead and go through the presentation, and I will answer as many questions as I can. Hopefully you have screens in front of you that allow you to see the presentation. So go to the next slide. Tonight we're going to look at programming options. We are going to explore the gifted resources that we have in district, specifically to support our learners. Okay, next slide. So in our district, we serve about 13% of our population, which is over 3,000 gifted students, which is a lot of gifted kids. And we recognize that that's a lot of gifted kids. We have a gifted specialist at every one of our elementary sites. At our middle school and high school, we have gifted liaisons who serve kind of as a connection between gifted learners and their classroom teachers, administration. We do have 2 middle school programs that are completely staffed with gifted qualified teachers. Next one. This is on our website and just gives you an idea of the variety of programming that we offer, from everything from cluster grouping all the way up through AP classes in high school, as well as the CREST program and the Distinguished Scholars program. So when we talk about the continuum of services, that continuum starts with our cluster classrooms. And we have cluster classrooms at every elementary school. We also have content replacement at every elementary school, and that starts in 4th grade for our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders in reading and in math. We identify students in gifted starting at the 97th percentile, and then we also have what we call flex students or talent pool, and those are students who qualified with a 94th to 96th percentile. When we think about our gifted learners, we recognize that there's a range of gifted learner. And just like there's a range of learner in a classroom, we have gifted learners who maybe scored at the 97th percentile, but then we also have other gifted learners who perhaps scored at the 99th percentile. We look at 3 specific areas. We look at the verbal area, the quantitative area, and the nonverbal area. And we have some learners who've scored in the 99th percentile in all of those areas. We recognize that content replacement is not enough for them. They need a program that provides something for them all day long. And that's where we have the comprehensive gifted program, and which is referred to as self-contained. That's a by application program. It is offered at multiple sites, and those sites are listed. When you get to middle school, things get a little different. We have programs like the DLC, the Digital Learning Center, and that program is not an online program, which a lot of people think it is. It's actually a technology-infused, project-based learning program. And then we also have Journey. And I'll be talking a little bit more about those as I share the different kinds of curriculum that we offer. If you want to go to the next one. So everything in Paradise Valley is designed to look at that graduate. What does a PV graduate need? Well, that PV graduate starts in kindergarten, in preschool. And everything we do with that student to get them ready to graduate, to be ready to go, whether it's to a state university, whether it's to a university out of state, whether it's into a vocational program, everything we do has to be geared for that PV graduate, to make sure that we're providing everything that we can to ensure their success. And that starts when they're little. A lot of times we think about graduation when we think about high school, and it's high school, we got to have our high school graduates ready. Well, really, the getting ready process starts at 5, and at 6, and at 7, because if we don't have a foundation in place, it won't matter what we do in high school. Our kids won't be ready. So we're starting with our young learners to make sure that we're ready all the way up through. Okay, next slide. Still on the same one?
I am on the right one.
Okay. So when we think about gifted learners and what those learners need, what do they need to be successful? Well, we believe that gifted learners need a safe and flexible learning environment. Safe because if I as a learner don't feel safe where I am, I'm not going to learn anything. Flexible because gifted learners kind of float in and out, and we need to be able to move with that flow. Additionally, we need to focus on social and emotional learning. Those of you who have gifted children recognize that every gifted learner comes with a certain amount of baggage. There's some things that are just part of being a gifted kid that others perhaps don't have to deal with. Sometimes it's perfectionism. Sometimes it's anxiety. But understanding that I don't need to be fixed. I just need you to help me understand how to address those things. And the last piece is a learning environment that's paced to keep me engaged. We recognize that gifted learners, it's really not about how smart that learner is, and that's really a misconception that people have. Giftedness is really not about how smart a child is. It's actually about how their brain is processing information. They process information differently, which is why they need a different curriculum. It's why they need a different pace. It's why they need different complexity in the tasks that are offered to them. Okay, next slide. I challenged all of our teachers this year to do this one thing: engage all students in the learning process. Engage them. Connect them to the learning process. And that's what we need to do. Next slide. So here are two links that we use a lot. The National Gifted Association link, NAGC, breaks down into very specific components and has very specific standards that we need to make sure we address in our classrooms. Additionally, we have to look at the state standards and what does the state require of us. Both of those drive the instruction for us, not just NAGC, not just the state. It's where we merge those two together that we provide for our gifted learners. So this particular presentation has links to both of those that you can look at. Next one. Okay. If your child feels safe, they take risks. They're willing.
Is this available offline to look at those ones?
Yes, absolutely. If they're willing to take risks, they're willing to ask questions, they're willing to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we grow. We have to be willing to make mistakes. We have to be willing to move forward. Without that safety in a classroom, children aren't going to do that. So we need to make sure that we've established an environment where it's okay to be wrong. That's a challenge for gifted kids because they don't like to be wrong, ever. But being wrong is how I learn. So I have to be in a situation where I can be comfortable to have made a mistake and learn from it. Next slide. So when we think about the elementary school curriculum, go on to the next one, it all starts with a cluster. And when we talk about cluster grouping is the baseline that we work from. That says that I'm going to put my gifted learners grouped together in a class because we know that they need like-minded peers. I'm going to provide a teacher that has been trained in how to address and work with gifted kids. And I'm going to make sure that I am providing those differentiated opportunities. One of the most frustrating things for a gifted child is to be told, okay, as soon as you finish this, that everybody else is doing, even though you've already shown me you know how to do it, I need you to do this, and then you can do your extension. Well, I already showed you that I know how to do this. Why am I doing it? It's a waste of their time. And so that's something that we are really working to support teachers on, into understanding that if you've pre-tested me and I already know how to do it, then I'm done. Give me that extension opportunity. When we think about how we address the curriculum in a cluster classroom, we address it in three areas. We address it with enrichment, that opportunity to go deeper, to extend my learning. We address it with enhancements. An enhancement says, I'm going to change the complexity of what you're doing. Gifted kids thrive on complexity. When we make something more complex for them, they get excited. They may be doing the same assignment, but if I have given them the option of using 3 resources instead of just 1 resource, suddenly I've raised the complexity for them. When I've given them the opportunity to perhaps not use the graphic organizer that I designed, but I'm letting them choose between graphic organizers, I raise the complexity. When I say to them, you're right, you know how to sequence a story, but I want you to sequence it a little differently this time. I want you to tell me what is the most significant event in the story, and I want you to sequence it from what you believe the most significant event is to the least significant event. Now, a lot of times people say, well, aren't they all going to have different answers? I certainly hope so. Because we need to have a discussion. We need to talk about, well, I believe that this was the most important. Okay, well, but I believe this was. Why? What was this event that really got you going and helped you realize that, oh no, this was the most important thing that happened in the story? That discussion is critical with gifted learners. So when we think about enrichment and enhancement, and then we have what we call mild acceleration. Acceleration happens naturally. I've learned something and I'm ready to go on to the next thing. But in a cluster classroom, it's not our goal to rapidly move kids through content. Our goal is to spend the majority of our time in that extension, that enrichment, and that enhancement. We want to spend our time there. And we may have some moderate acceleration, some very mild acceleration, but for the most part, we're going to work in those top 2 areas. Next slide. Inquiry, critical and creative thinking. Oh yeah. Again, that's where the complexity comes from. So next slide. When we think about critical thinking and the elements that are part of critical thinking, notice that we're talking about analyzing and evaluating and gathering information. We're talking about determining significance, determining whether something is valid or not. That's a critical thinking process that we need to engage our gifted learners in, that we need to engage all learners in. But we also have to pull in that creative process, that ability to brainstorm, that ability to come up with not only examples, but non-examples. Coming up with a non-example is a whole lot more challenging than coming up with an example. We need them to have that ability to mind map and pull the pieces together and begin to see the relationships. We need them to have that ability to question. Well, what if? And I know, what if? That's a parent's nightmare. And with mine at home, when I heard that word, well, Mom, what if? I just wanted to cringe. But that's part of that creativity. That's part of that exploration of figuring out, well, what if? What if this happened? So we want that to be part of what they're doing. And then, of course, that inquiry process. That process of not being given the answer, but being given the tools to find the answer. And I still remember when my son came home at one point and he said, Mom, my teacher won't answer my questions. I said, really? No, she just asks me another question. I said, wonder why she's doing that. I don't know, but I need her to answer my questions. I said, no, you really don't. You need her to get you to think. Mom, that's a whole lot harder. It'd be just so much easier if you could just answer my question. Yeah, I realize it's a whole lot harder, but I need you to think. I need our learners to not be dependent upon a teacher for answers, because that teacher's not going to be with them forever. I need them to learn how to think. So if your child comes home and says, my teacher's not answering my questions, they might not be. They might be asking another question to guide them and get them into that inquiry process. Next slide. So content replacement gifted, otherwise honors, we oftentimes call it. That's a recognition that by 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, we need more than that mild acceleration. We still need that opportunity for enrichment. We still need that enhancement because we still need that complexity. But now we're at the point where we need to add some acceleration in. And that acceleration is about a year above grade level in reading and in math. That's critical if we want to continue to see growth. So we have to build that into the system. Again, this is taught by the gifted specialists at the site. It is a replacement of the class content. So instead of doing math with the class, the gifted learner does math with their gifted specialist. And they're working a year about above grade level. Reading is, again, being replaced. Now, we don't teach the writing process as part of the content replacement reading time. That happens in the classroom. But it's pretty hard to teach reading and not write. So your kids write journal entries, they write character sketches, they write, so yes, they're writing, but we're not teaching the actual writing process during that time. Next slide. When we think about integrated reading, which is what that reading period is called, we're looking at integrating all of the different skill sets that learners need, all of those different pieces, bringing in that comprehension and that analysis, bringing in the opportunity to learn that strong vocabulary. We use Michael Clay Thompson's Caesar's English, as well as Word Within a Word, to give our learners a very rich vocabulary. We also use a 4-level grammar, which gives them the opportunity to learn to break down our language and to see it in terms of how does this word work in our language? Because English is a language where we have many words that, depending on how they're used in the sentence, can mean very different things. So having a learner understand, well, what does this word do in this sentence? And how is this sentence broken apart? And why is this a direct object and this is an indirect object? And how does that change the meaning of my sentence? That's all part of that 4-level grammar that the kids learn. And I laugh because when I first started teaching 4-level grammar many years ago, when I grew up, grammar was what you did when you messed up for the teacher. You had a substitute and you were not good, so the class got grammar pages. That was our punishment. And all I kept thinking was, how am I going to get these kids excited about grammar? Because, to be honest, grammar didn't excite me. And I started with Michael Clay Thompson's 4-level grammar. It's a sentence a day that you work on. And we've been doing it a while. My kids really seem to enjoy it. And one morning, I had been in a staff meeting, and I was a little late walking into the classroom. And I didn't have the sentence up on the board. That was what we always started our day with. I didn't have it up. And I said to the kids, Miss Brown, the sentence isn't up on the board. I said, I know, we're just gonna skip it today. If you gave me, I could write it up there for you really quick. And I thought, oh my goodness, you guys, all right, fine. So I wrote it up, and I had a student come to me after class, and he said, I could come in a few minutes early each morning and make sure that we have the sentence on the board ready to go. Okay, I guess this isn't as bad as I thought it was. We want our kids to study poetics and understand how poetry works, how it flows, what the connections are, what's the symbolism that's involved. Symbolism is so beautifully represented in poetry, and when we teach kids that poetic piece, we enable them to begin to see that symbolism. Next slide. So these are some of the resources that we use. We specifically use the College of William and Mary materials because they were designed for gifted kids. We use junior grade books because they were designed for gifted kids. We use Michael Clay Thompson's materials because they were designed for gifted kids. One of the most challenging things for teachers in reading is the fact that we oftentimes have gifted readers who are reading 3, 4, 5 years above grade level. That means that I have a 4th grader who can read at a high school level. your fourth grader reading high school material? I don't. I don't want my fourth grader anywhere near high school material. I'm not even sure I want my high school near high school material. But I still need that complexity. I need that piece that engages. That's why we use these materials, because they are developmentally appropriate while still giving me the level of complexity that I need to ensure that I can keep my students engaged and that they can continue to learn and to grow. That's why we use these materials. Next. Hope this is making sense for you all. We also have a variety of novels that have been approved through the district process for use with our students. Now, obviously, your student isn't going to read all of these books. They're going to read a select group. And you've got a list that went home that let you know this year these are the ones that your teacher has chosen that they're going to have their student read. Also on here, we have the self-contained gifted and the content replacement scope and sequences. If you're interested in those, you're welcome to click on that link when you get them and look at those, as well as the PD Schools literature list. It is not unusual for teachers to read above grade level text on that list, but again, we have to be very careful about the above grade level text that we choose, which is why we've specifically identified books that were part of our William and Mary curriculum to enable our learners to be more comfortable with the text, but also get the challenge that they need. So we have to be careful about that. Next. So we're going to make a little shift. We're going to shift from reading to math. Well, isn't it just computation? No. Computation is such a small part of mathematics. Mathematics is conceptual. Mathematics is that ability to see math as a language and see the relationships that the numbers have with each other. When we think about math, we spend a great deal of time talking with students about the 8 mathematical practices. These are the practices that will guide our learners in being able to move deeper into mathematics. If you have a gifted child at home, you've heard this before. Well, I don't know how I know the answer. I just know. The answer's 7. I just know it's 7. Well, how do you know it's 7? I just know. And I've had many children look at me and go, Mrs. Brown, just trust me. The answer's 7. It isn't that I don't trust them, but unfortunately I can't see what's going on in that head. So I need to know, and I need them to show me in some way what they're thinking. These mathematical practices help our learners. They give them the language to show their thinking. Because for many of them, they're absolutely right. It did just gel in front of their eyes, and they do just know the answer. Well, that's great for now. But as they move on, I need them to have these mathematical practices so that as things get more challenging, they have that practice to fall back on. We really want our kids to develop those math mindsets. That understanding that it's about thinking, not waiting. It's about improving, not being finished. It's about effort versus answers. Putting those mathematical mindsets in place enables our learners to move forward. It's hard. It's frustrating for kids. Why do I have to do this? I talk with a lot of middle schoolers who say, why do we need algebra? I am never going to use this, Miss Brown. Trust me, I'm never going to use it. I'm like, do you use critical thinking at all? Well, yeah, everybody uses critical thinking. Well, guess what? Algebra is critical thinking. Oh. All right, well, maybe I'll need it a little bit. Yeah, they'll need a lot. We really want them to get those mindsets connected so that they can continue that growth process. Next slide. We have 2 math programs in our district. One is Eureka, which we use with K-5 students, and then we have illustrative mathematics that we use 6, 7, 8 for our other groups of kids. You'll notice that in both instances, these are conceptual. And what we mean by that is it is not enough to be able to perform the algorithm. It's great that you know how to do long division. Do you understand why it works? When we talk about place value, and I have students who will show me, Ms. Brown, look, you cross out this number and then you put a 9, and then you cross out this one and I said, well, what does that 1 mean? Well, it's a 1. A 1? Yeah, it's a 1, Ms. Brown, it's just a 1. When you add that column, it's just a 1. They're not showing me that they understand place value. They're not showing me that they have a grasp of ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, that they understand when I put that decimal there. Well, you can just move the decimal when you multiply. When we do powers of 10, all it is moving a decimal. It's not moving a decimal. It's understanding that you're actually increasing and decreasing something by a power of 10. It's not just moving a decimal. It's important that our kids have that conceptual understanding. Why does it work? Not just this is how to do it. Unfortunately, what happens is they learn quick tricks, because gifted kids can watch you do it once and they've got it. And they learn a quick trick, and that's great, but quick tricks don't stick with us. And so we end up missing pieces of the puzzle. So we really focus on that conceptual growth. Next one. So that's our baseline. That encompasses our cluster and our content replacement. But then we also have those learners that we talked about earlier who need that comprehensive learning environment, that self-contained program. For those learners, we again are looking at enrichment and enhancement, but now our acceleration kicks up a notch and we have more radical acceleration. These learners are 2 years above grade level. Some are 3 years above grade level, because that's where they need to be. Now, does that mean that we don't use that enhancement anymore? Oh, no. We still very much use that enhancement, particularly in science and social studies, because we have kept them on grade level in that content. But by enhancing that content, by changing the complexity of the task, I can keep my learner engaged with that. By providing those extensions and those enrichment opportunities, I can keep them engaged in that. In our district, we offer multi-age classes as well as single grade level, depending upon the school that your child is attending, if they are in comprehensive gifted. Again, science and social studies are on grade level, but they're enhanced. That's where that complexity piece has been added in. Then we move to middle school. In our meeting that we had earlier on the 11th, I asked people, raise your hand if you loved middle school. Gee, nobody's hands are going up. It's because middle school's tough. Middle school's that awkward time where I'm not in elementary school anymore, but I'm not in high school, and I'm right in the middle. And I'm growing rapidly, and I'm out of place sometimes. Well, that feeling sometimes gets quadrupled for gifted kids. And that's one reason why we want to make sure that we have programming in place to support that. We offer the Digital Learning Center at Sunrise Middle School. This is a program that offers that project-based opportunity, that project-based learning opportunity with a cohort of kids to work with. There are 3 teachers that work in the program. They teach language arts, science, and social studies. We have a teacher who specifically addresses that writing component, as well as tying the reading that they do to their science and to their social studies content. Math is, of course, leveled depending on where they need to be, but the DLC offers them that opportunity to really engage in project-based learning, and they love it. We also recognize that it gives them the opportunity for some choice and to be innovative in their thinking. When we talk about an integrated curriculum simply means that I am tying all of the standards that they're working on together. And I'm integrating their reading with the science that they're learning. So if they're learning about genetics here, they're reading something here that ties it together. If they're learning about World War II, they're tying something in language to it. So that I'm pushing those pieces together for them, which the kids really seem to enjoy. We have a lot of guided collaboration, opportunities for them to work together. In the elementary school, we spend a lot of time teaching kids to cooperate. And cooperation is important, but we also spend time teaching them to collaborate. That collaboration really starts to show itself when we get into project-based learning. That ability to hear all the voices around you. That can be tough for a gifted kid, because oftentimes gifted kids feel like, I'm right, you're wrong, end of discussion. So learning how to collaborate together and how to let everyone's voice be heard is a big piece for them. Journey is a program that we offer at Mountain Trails. This is a blended learning, a personalized learning environment for kids. Journey has personalized learning. They function under a block schedule. A lot of hands-on, a lot of technology here as well. Both of those programs are technology-based. In Journey, we're really looking at that opportunity for a personalized connection for that learning. Lots and lots of student-driven choice. That's what Journey offers. So, the objectives specific to the Journey program are those, that personalized pathway, that choice, that voice opportunity to really be able to say, this is what I want, and this is where I want to head, and then that project-based learning. In Journey, it's more an individual working on that project-based learning environment. In the DLC, it's more of a group. So we always get this question, well, how are they different? How do I know which one to go to? Well, I would encourage you to tour both of them, but we have a block schedule in Journey. We have 2 teachers versus 3 teachers, so it's a difference in the number of individuals that they're working with. One is a very personalized learning environment. The other is more of a group learning environment. When we think about community service, both groups offer community service and leadership opportunities. It's really the difference between that personalized approach versus that project-based approach. One quick reminder about gifted testing. We do have a new procedure that we're using, and that procedure says that we no longer have that rolling schedule. If you are looking to have your 4th, 5th, or 6th grader tested this fall, the registration ends August 22nd, sorry. You can register online. It is available for you. Parent permission forms, if you just go on our district website, the permission form is right there. You can sign your child up for that testing. More information about the multiple testings that we offer. The state requires that we test 3 times a year. We do in Paradise Valley offer testing 3 times a year. In addition, we offer blanket testing for our 2nd graders as well as for our 3rd graders. Slide. I do want to invite you on September 13th. We are really excited about having Emler Kirchner-Morris come and join us. She'll be working with teachers during the day and students, and then in the evening she'll be doing a parent meeting. She's going to be talking with us about neurodiversity and the neurodiverse learner. Many of you refer to those as twice exceptional kids. She's got some wonderful strategies for us and things that we can do that really will help us support those learners. That's a big goal for us this year in Paradise Valley, is really recognizing that we have many neurodiverse children, and we really need to be working to support them. Again, we have a great website that has all kinds of information on it. If you haven't visited the website, I would encourage you to do so. And something that we love is the parent portal. And Mrs. Warner developed the parent portal. It's a one-stop shop for everything that you could possibly need as a parent in terms of information. It's all right there. It's a quick click, and there you go. You've got anything that you need. So I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to check out the parent portal, that you check it out. It's a great place, and bookmark it on your computer. And we've got about 10 minutes. If I have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Please understand I can't answer specific questions related to your child, but I'm happy to answer any program questions if you have them. I do apologize that we weren't able to do a big screen presentation, but hopefully you got some information this evening that supports you in moving forward. Any questions from this group before we check with the people online? No? All right, any questions online?
I have a question from the Zoom room.
Okay.
Once the student tests into honors, do they test again?
No. Once a student is identified gifted, that identification never goes away. You stay a gifted learner. So if you are identified in first grade, you are identified as a gifted learner, you stay a gifted learner all the way up through high school. That doesn't go away. Now, I do have parents who will choose to test their child more than once, specifically if they really feel like their learner needs more of our comprehensive or self-contained learning environment. Maybe their child tested and they had a 97 in one area, but they didn't have the 97 in two areas with at least a 90 in the third. They may choose to have their learner tested again, and that's fine. But once a learner is identified as a gifted student, they're done. That's it. We don't have to retest year after year.
You need to have how many? 97?
So you need two 97s, so either verbal, quantitative, or nonverbal. So two 97s and at least a 90 in the third area, and that qualifies you to apply for the self-contained program. Yes?
Another online question. Lindsay didn't catch what you said about gifted testing in second and third grade.
Okay, so in second and third grade this year, we're offering what we call blanket testing, which means that we will test every single second grader in district, and we will test every single third grader in district. Now, the reason for that we're doing that this year, specifically our second graders, is that the state has agreed to pay to test every second grader if we want to, using the cognitive abilities test. Why would we not? It's expensive for us to do that. We would love to do that. We recognize that with the pandemic, we missed a lot of kids that we didn't have the opportunity to test because we couldn't. So that just gives us another opportunity. We're also going to be using a brand new test called the NGATE, the Naglieri General Ability Assessment, and that's one that we're going to use with our third graders. What we love about the NGATE is the fact that it gives us a verbal, a quantitative, and a nonverbal score, but there's no language in that. So if I don't happen to come from a home where English is spoken, or perhaps I am a second language learner, or maybe I'm a third language learner, it doesn't impede my ability to be identified as a gifted learner. And that's an important piece for many of our students.
Is the testing each year different, I'm assuming, like based on what you're doing?
So we test 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. We can only test a student on a given test once per year. So if I test a learner in the spring, I can't test them again until the following spring on that particular test, which is why we use the NNAT, which is the Naglieri test. I can test them on the NNAT, I can test them on the COGAT, and now I can also test them on the NGATE, which gives us some testing options. We always start in the fall using the COGAT, and we'll do that with our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Then in the winter, we will do testing with our NNAT, which is a nonverbal assessment. And then in the spring, we'll offer the NGATE for our third graders, and we'll do the COGAT again to pick up any kids that we missed from kindergarten all the way up. We actually even offer testing for children entering kindergarten. That one is by appointment, basically, so you would have to contact our district office, and we can set up testing. If you have an incoming kindergartner, that doesn't happen until January.
And the testing is where?
It happens at the school. Happens at the school. Yes.
There is someone else on Zoom. So students must change schools for the middle school programs.
The middle school programs are only offered at Sunrise has the Digital Learning Center, and Journey is offered at Mountain Trails. So they would have to, if that's not your feeder school, then yes, you would have to be. Now, Desert Shadows also offers the Honors Academies, and we do have some of our gifted learners who choose that. We also have gifted kids who choose the International Baccalaureate program, and so it really kind of depends. IB does not fall under the gifted umbrella, so to speak, but it's a great program for gifted kids as well. Yes.
Someone from Facebook Land. We would like to hear about real plans for a program for 2E kids in middle and high school. She has quite a bit on here. One with smaller classes, quieter hallways and passing periods, no loud bells. I'm going to try to summarize this just a little bit.
So what I can tell you right now is we have a very limited program at high school. It is something that we are working on. You'll get more information as soon as I'm able to share that. I hope to be able to share in September our plans for a 3-tiered approach for our twice exceptional kids, recognizing that tier 1 is that regular classroom, tier 2 is that resource environment, and tier 3 is that self-contained environment. And we are hoping to have a program that functions K-12. That's our goal, and it's something that we're putting in the works at this point. We'll have more information that I can share in September. Unfortunately, until some information is released, I can't share it.
I believe that also addresses the second part of her question, which is about the children in 2E that don't quite meet the 97%, and I assume that's all built into that.
All built into it.
I have another Zoom question.
Okay.
If we aren't in the feeder for the honors middle school, do we have to apply to be accepted into those programs?
All students have to apply to those programs. Even if you're in that feeder system, you don't automatically go into Journey or automatically go into the DLC. They are application programs. Those applications open in October. And there'll be information on our website that just lets you know when they open up. We also do, we take the show on the road, so to speak, and we will visit the elementary schools sharing information about those programs as well.
Did I read that one of them is an online program?
None of them are online.
Oh.
The Digital Learning Center, many people think is online because of that term, Digital Learning Center. It's not an online program. As a district, we do have PB Online, but that's not affiliated with it.
And then also, so that's something you said that students are teaching, or one of them, I'm not sure if it's Journey or the other one, it was like students were teaching.
It's very student driven. Students aren't necessarily teaching, they're working together in a project-based learning environment, but they're not instructing now. There are teachers that are instructing. Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for your patience this evening. I do apologize. Unfortunately, the weather has been playing havoc with our resources lately, and so thank you so much for coming. Thank you for those of you who joined us online. This presentation is available on the UPC website. You are able to download it and click on all of the links to get the information that we wish to share with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.